I was in the midst of my usual meal when an unexpected surge of discomfort washed over me, causing my body to uncontrollably sway. A peculiar sensation enveloped me, and I lost my balance, collapsing onto the floor. As my consciousness grew hazy, the pain seemed to fade away. Confusion took over as I struggled to muster any strength to lift myself or change position. Amid fading consciousness, faint laughter reached my ears. My mother-in-law and husband seemed to be orchestrating something according to plan. Amid this surreal episode, I barely comprehended their words before slipping into unconsciousness. The following day, I woke up in a hospital room, confronted by the dramatically altered appearances of my husband and mother-in-law. My name is Megan, I'm 32 years old and have always had a passion for drawing. I pursued this interest by graduating from a specialized design school and working as a web designer at an advertising agency. 4 years ago, I crossed paths with James while handling web design for a company. What began as a professional relationship soon blossomed into personal connection. Regular messages and shared meals gradually kindled a romantic attraction. After 3 years of dating, we tied the knot 6 months ago, settling into a cozy house near our workplace. Despite both of us working, household chores were meant to be shared, as per our agreement. Lately, however, my husband's dedication to chores had dwindled. Today was no different, with pizza boxes and a snoozing husband on the sofa. Despite my efforts to wake him, he remained unresponsive until reluctantly getting up to address my concerns. His nonchalant attitude was frustrating. He seemed to disregard our shared responsibilities despite me earning more and contributing equally. As he headed to the bathroom, I suppressed the urge to immediately tidy up, focusing instead on preparing breakfast. Roughly 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and my husband, surprisingly attentive, greeted his mother. Unprepared in my pajamas, I quickly tried to tidy up, apologizing for my appearance. My mother-in-law criticized my lack of preparation, asserting that a wife should always be presentable and maintain a tidy home. This encounter highlighted the ongoing challenge of balancing household responsibilities and expectations within our marriage. It became evident that mutual respect and communication were crucial to fostering a harmonious partnership. My mother-in-law gestured towards the scattered remains on the table, expressing her disbelief. My husband's guilty expression shifted as her gaze met his. Knowing that my husband might reconsider his actions if my mother-in-law confronted him, I seized this as an opportunity and directed her attention to him. I explained that the mess was actually James' doing, despite our initial agreement to share household chores and clean up after ourselves. My mother-in-law's glance moved briefly to my husband before returning to me, leading me to anticipate her reprimand. However, she surprised me by saying something outrageous. Mentioning that being a wife meant serving my husband, she claimed that sharing household chores was out of the question. She suggested that I should take care of all household matters because I married a good person like James. This unfair statement left me shocked and frustrated. Just when I thought the conversation couldn't get stranger, the doorbell rang again, announcing a series of boxes being brought into the room. Confused by this unexpected development, I rushed to the front door. My husband proudly announced that his mother would be moving in with us starting that day. I was taken aback as I had never been informed about this decision. I confronted him, expressing my confusion and frustration at his unilateral decision. James justified his choice by explaining that his mother's apartment was going to be demolished, leaving her with nowhere else to go. Despite my mother-in-law's ability to take care of herself, she was moving in with us. I objected, as this decision was made without consulting me. In a hushed conversation, I pleaded with him not to do this, expressing my concerns about our relationship dynamics and my struggles with his mother's presence. However, James maintained that the decision was final, as the house was in his name. His mother's presence in our home led to a transformation of my life. The stress I once experienced only from my husband was now exacerbated by my mother-in-law's presence. Her constant sarcastic remarks made living together unbearable. Her critical comments about my cooking and how I folded laundry intensified my stress. With my husband not standing up for me, enduring this situation for 3 months pushed me to my limit. I realized that if things persisted, my feelings for my husband might turn sour as well. Feeling this sense of urgency, I turned to my husband one night in our bedroom, sharing my overwhelming emotions. I made a request, expressing that living with his mother was becoming unbearable and that I couldn't continue in this situation. My husband's initial reaction was disbelief, but I implored him to consider my feelings and the strain it was putting on our relationship. "I'm really struggling with our current life," I confessed to my husband, prompting a heavy sigh from him, followed by a stern glare. His response left me disheartened, as he stated that my mother-in-law was merely trying to educate me. Feeling hurt, I questioned if I was truly such a terrible wife. I voiced my concerns about his hurtful words and the way he spoke to me, hoping for understanding. Despite my pleas, my husband continued to be dismissive. He suggested that I should make more effort to gain their recognition and commented that it was a miracle I had even managed to get married. This plunged me into a deep sense of despair, feeling inadequate compared to societal standards of a wife. This experience perpetuated my self-loathing, and despite my attempts to discuss my feelings with my husband, he remained unwilling to end the cohabitation. Over the next 6 months, I found myself enduring life with my mother-in-law. One day, when she was out alone, I seized the opportunity to quickly clean the kitchen. However, cleaning had become a challenge due to my mother-in-law's habits. She would leave her things scattered around and sometimes forget about them, even leading to expired items. As I organized the fridge, I encountered 2 cartons of milk, one about to expire and a new one. I rearranged them, placing the closer to expire carton in the front. As my husband and mother-in-law returned home, my mother-in-law approached me with a smile, expressing her intent to cook dinner. I offered to cook, but she insisted. My husband surprisingly offered to help, a gesture he rarely extended when I cooked. This made me wonder if he desired a wife like his mother. The dinner table was soon adorned with various dishes prepared by my mother-in-law, including a recommended cold pumpkin soup. Despite reservations, I tried it and noticed its texture wasn't smooth due to unblended pumpkin. My mother-in-law and husband belittled my cooking while praising her own. I reluctantly continued to eat, not wanting to waste the food, when suddenly, an intense wave of nausea and discomfort hit me. Collapsing to the floor, I lost my balance and consciousness. As I faded into unconsciousness, I faintly heard my mother-in-law and husband's laughter, claiming that everything was going according to plan. Their words echoed as my awareness dimmed. The next day, I awoke in the hospital, unsure of the events that had transpired. I sensed a slight discomfort and faint pain in my stomach, although it wasn't as severe as the previous night. Confusion filled me as I tried to sit up in the hospital bed, only to notice my mother-in-law on one bed and my husband on another, looking considerably worse. Their appearances had drastically changed, with sunken cheeks and pallor. My mother-in-law erupted in anger upon seeing me well, while my husband seemed to validate her reaction. I demanded an explanation for the situation. My husband and mother-in-law explained their disturbing plan. They confessed to lacing the pumpkin soup with a laxative, aiming to humiliate me. I realized they had inadvertently consumed the spiked soup themselves due to a mix-up with the milk. Their stomach issues led to an ambulance being called, with both of them experiencing intense discomfort. As I lay in the hospital bed, I had suffered a different health issue, which led to my collapse. Their vile intentions and backfired scheme finally became evident to me. I recognized the absurdity of the situation and how I had been manipulated. Determined to reclaim control, I confronted them. Their attempts to intimidate me no longer worked. I announced my decision to divorce my husband and seek legal action against their actions. My husband was taken aback by my resolve, and I turned my attention to my mother-in-law, challenging her tough facade. Despite her initial resistance, I knew my position was strong. The threat of a lawsuit and the potential damage to their reputations forced them to rethink their stance. As the nurse intervened, I was transferred to a different hospital room. Later diagnosed with stress-induced gastric ulcers, the timing seemed fitting, a sign that I needed to break free from the toxic situation. After my discharge, I pursued legal action and initiated the divorce process. During this time, my mother-in-law and husband faced the consequences of their actions. They paid compensation, depleting their savings. Rumors of our divorce circulated within his workplace, causing my husband's professional life to unravel. In contrast, my life took a positive turn. I moved to a comfortable apartment, embracing a peaceful existence. The weight of enduring their cruelty was lifted, and I relished newfound freedom. The painful days of my married life were behind me, and I embraced a life focused on my own happiness.